Hello and welcome to Board of It. I'm Farrell. My co-host Hallie is, luckily for her, on holiday, and I'm going to bring you today a review of the Delta Green RPG. The RPG which asks, what if X-Files and Lovecraftian horror had a love child? So, in this RPG, you'll play as agents of Delta Green, a secretive organization making the last stand of humanity against horrible otherworldly horrors. So, specifically today, we're going to review the slipcase set and black sites. And this case here contains the Agent's Handbook, which will give you all the rules you need to know to play the game, how to create your characters, and things like that. Whereas the Handler's Guide is for the person who will be running your campaign or your games of Delta Green. And this is very lore heavy and just has a lot of resources such as support for how to run and create scenarios and all kinds of stats for all kinds of things from monsters to weapons. Black Sites is a collection of written scenarios for Delta Green, so also a great resource and we'll get more into later. But please note that both of these were provided by the publisher for review. Delta Green's rule set is remarkably similar to the evergreen RPG Call of Cthulhu, and that would be because this started as a sourcebook for that game in the 90s. So you're going to have a lot of different skills that are available to you, but for most of them, you will be very average, and there will only be a select few that you'll be probably very good at. And what you're going to be doing when you have a skill check is you will be rolling a D100 and trying to get even or under the set number, whichever the handler decides, that is. So a double, such as 44 or 55, these are either critical successes or failures, depending on if you fail or succeed. Combat works the same way, as you'll be using one of your skills in combat, but if you get a successful roll, you'll then roll something between a D4 and a D20, usually for damage, to see how much damage you do, which is a pretty standard RPG system. Now, again, there are a lot of rules in terms of how you can handle combat if you want that. It adds things such as body armor, which can kind of impact the damage that will be done to you or you can do, and many other things. We will say that the core system, although a very popular one and well used, it's not our favorite. I think the rolling D100 is fine, and I really like the twist with kind of the double, so critical success or fail. That's fun. But I think where it comes to combat in these types of RPGs, we're just not a fan of rolling to succeed and then rolling to get damage. I think unless you're playing with people who know exactly what they're doing when and are doing it basically instinctively, it really can slow the game down and the combat down. And I think at least what I've found with the people we play with is that the combat's not necessarily their favorite bit. And also in Delta Green, it shouldn't be, because usually, although different people have different likes, right? But you're supposed to be facing otherworldly horrors that you can't defeat by conventional means. So it also isn't a game in my mind that you want to be bogged down in combat all the time. But of course, that's going to be a different experience with people who very much know what they're doing. Unsurprisingly, with the subject matter, there's going to be an element of sanity in this game, and that will be a core element, because often you're going to see horrific things and you'll make a sanity roll. And again, you're trying to roll equal or under your sanity, but if you fail, and sometimes even if you succeed, you will lose sanity from that stat. And if you lose too much too quickly, then you will gain conditions which the players will have to act out and will probably also impede them in some way, making it harder to complete their goals. When it comes to running Delta Green, it is very much up to the GM, or handler in this case, of how much of the rule set they want to include, because this is going to be an intense game in terms of the rule set, if you're using everything. And in that case, you definitely want it to be played with an experienced handler and an experienced set of players in terms of RPGs, or even, Delta Green or a similar system, because that's when you'll get the most out of it. However, you can definitely run it with a very simplified rule set, but I think in any case and in any way you play it, there is a lot of onus on the handler to keep track of players and to remind them of what skills might be appropriate, there being so many to use in any given scenario. And also just to make sure that they're aware of granular rules and to explain the kind of wealth of options available to players. So just keep all that in mind. For us, the highlight of Delta Green is the versatility of its system. I know that the hardback slipcase set is going to set you back a bit of money, but the wealth of information and resources that you get is unparalleled to anything else I've seen. You get so much out of it, and it will be something that will overwhelm inexperienced GMs. But if you're a group that loves your RPGs structured and a rule for everything and a stat for everything, then this is going to be your type of RPG. Coming to character creation, the game provides dozens and dozens of roles, along with the associated skills that they might have. And there's also information on a vast number of government agencies, so you can really create very fleshed out characters with significant backstories. And just tailor whoever you want to be to your playstyle. So on top of that, there are hundreds of different types of assets and weapons and all things of that nature, which have details provided for them and rules for how they would work in the game. So you really can have some sort of guidance for any eventuality in any scenario. And this is on top of all the just basic rules and systems that these books provide. What I personally think is really wonderful is the Handler's Guide. Now, as you can see, this is a huge book, but that's because it contains hundreds of pages of lore of Delta Green. And this is something that I read like it was a novel. I think it is fascinating to anyone who enjoys reading the Lovecraft-based stories and cosmic horror. And it also covers about 100 years of Delta Green. And it's great for people who want to create their own scenarios, because there is just so much there to pick out of in the stories they tell that you can use to set a scenario. There's also a wealth of monster lore, so much that it acts like an encyclopedia of the monsters of the Lovecraft mythos. Importantly, it should be noted though that this is not something you need to play. So if you're trying to keep your costs down, you can ignore this, but it was something I did very much enjoy having. To bring this all back around, the Handler's Guide and the Agent's Handbook, they allow Delta Green to be whatever it is your group wants it to be. You can have massive action-filled adventures because there's details for every type of gun and every type of monster. You can have tense type kind of spy thrillers because there's such a wealth of Delta Green backstory that you can pick out these very engaging moments to turn into scenarios. It's just such a wealth, and it just really allows everything to shine in the way you want it to shine. And it also means that if you're looking for pre-made scenarios, there is such a variety and wealth available because of everything this system allows. So far, all of the scenarios we've played have come from Black Sites, this source book, and can definitely recommend it. It has a great variety, but it's also particularly good for beginners like we were when we tried it, because it comes with a scenario called PX Poker Night, which is a recommended intro scenario to Delta Green, and it comes with pre-made characters, which means that there's a lot less weight on the handler and the players for their first game trying to learn the system. And it helpfully gives tips to spin it out into a campaign if that is what you're after. Aside from that, there are a wealth of other scenarios in this book, and they're all wide-ranging and providing a lot of different variety from story to story or scenario to scenario. So you can have ones that are almost just pure detective work with minimal combat, up to huge shootouts with an entire town that are campaign enders and big and bombastic. So something for everyone. And even if there's ones that you aren't interested in running, they're still engaging to read, as in that they are a good story and thrilling. So there are also some absolute Delta Green fandom favorites in this collection, such as Lovers in the Ice, which is an infamous Delta Green mission where you begin in a blizzard in a town being supported by FEMA, going to check a damaged storage site, and it spirals wildly out of control. So definitely check this out if you are looking for some help in designing your scenarios. Coming to final thoughts, I think Delta Green is a terrific scenario, mainly because of the variety that it allows to blossom due to its vast number of rule sets. Now, it can be very overwhelming for handlers in particular, I think, but I think that the fact that it has such a wealth just means that there's always some guidance. So you can lean into it as much or as little as you want, and that's fine. But when in need, there will be something there, which is nice to have. Now, I think the variety for me shines in the different scenarios, the professionally written ones for sure. And I just think there's definitely something for everyone. And I love the kind of variety from one session to the next. Now, what happened is I managed to get, I think, pretty much everything Delta Green in a Humble Bundle. So now I have access to everything. And I've been reading the Delta Green campaigns. And I have to say, they sound particularly brilliant. So I'm very much looking forward into hosting a campaign, just because I'm so excited by what I've read, particularly in Impossible Landscapes, to experience it basically and see how my players experience it. So definitely full recommendation from us as an RPG to play. As we said, you probably don't need the handler's guide, but I really enjoyed it just to read the lore. So that's something to consider. But you also can get some great lore out of the campaigns as well, which I've enjoyed reading just as something to read. But that is our review of Delta Green. Please ask us any questions you may have. Please subscribe if you found this helpful. And we really appreciate you watching. So we'll see you next time. Bye.